to Kingdom Builders. We're going through a Bible study, and actually we're going through a series called Can You Think and Grow Rich Biblically? We're going through a book called Think and Grow Rich for anybody that's in business, that wants to make more money, that wants to have success. This is what many call the Bible of personal growth. But the question is, can we think and grow rich biblically? This is kind of funny. They made this book look like a Bible, but I got next to me another book that's the actual Bible itself as well too. So we're going through these chapters and we're seeing what's true, what's not true, and can we actually think and grow rich biblically? And today we're going to talk about chapter 3, which is the chapter of faith. So if that sounds like something interesting to you, like this, share this, subscribe to our YouTube, because we're going to go through this one by one. And I'd love to hear your thoughts as we go through this as well. So, faith. I wonder, have you ever had an idea that you were convinced was going to happen, but it ended up not happening that way? Now, I'll share with you a quick story. As an entrepreneur, I build sales teams. We are in the health and wellness business. And one part of what I do a lot is I recruit, I train, I scout, I expand. And years ago, there was an idea that came to my mind of expanding our business into a new country, the country of Thailand. And at this point, I'd gone through Think and Grow Rich. I knew the principle of seeing it, believing it before you see it. I knew the principles of writing it down. And one of the big concepts in Think and Grow Rich that's talked about is the element of faith, which is before you get anything, you have to believe it. So I knew these types of concepts, or so I thought I knew. So you know what I did? I wrote down my goals and I acted as if I was already there. And, and there was this idea of expanding into Thailand. And even better, the law of attraction, right? I knew these things and I studied these things. So here I am. I have a goal of expanding into a new country. And guess what? The greatest opportunity happened. I connected with somebody that was a top leader in another business. They saw what I was doing with this company and they were like, hey, let's go do something. So I'm like, so wait, this thing is working, right? And I'm moving, I'm having conversations. I link this person to some of the corporate staff. It's going amazing. He says, hey, I'm going to bring a big old team over. He has hundreds of people and all of that. I'm in the health and wellness space specifically. And before the deal closes, what ends up happening is we find out that our business actually can't expand into Thailand. And years later, actually, even more unfortunate, this person that I'd been connecting with ended up passing away due to a heart issue. And my heart goes out to him and his family. But I had to think to myself, and I wonder if you've had this as well too, when you had a dream that flopped, when you had an idea that flopped, why did that happen? And if I take a look at what Think and Grow Rich says, the answer is, well, I didn't have enough faith. I didn't have enough faith. And this topic of faith is very interesting because all throughout the Bible, it's very evident that faith is important as well too. And let me go through a couple of scriptures here as well too. And I don't know if you've ever struggled with this before, but like maybe we're just lacking faith with the goals and the businesses and the desires that we have. Maybe I just don't believe it enough, right? You don't visualize enough, right? So I look at these things and let me go through a couple of these Bible verses. It seems to say Mark 11:22-24. This is a very popular set of passages. Disciples are with Jesus, and Jesus says, answered to the disciples, said to them, have faith in God. Truly, I say to you, whoever says to this mountain, be taken up and thrown into the sea, does not doubt in his heart, believes that what he says is going to happen, it'll be granted to him. Therefore, I say to you, all things for which you pray and ask, believe that you have received them and they will be granted to you. Have you heard this before? Put a 1 in the chat if you've heard that before. So when I think about these goals and I think to myself, well, maybe I just didn't believe enough. Maybe I didn't visualize enough. Maybe I just didn't have enough faith. I start to look at that, and it gets really, really confusing, because what's enough faith and what's not enough faith? Is there a counter that we have? Have you ever thought that or been challenged with that before? Is it just because on the spectrum of faith meter, I'm just not there yet? Or could it be something more? And could the Bible say something actually different about this element of faith? And this is a really, really big key, because there's a big difference of what faith says, what faith is in this Think and Grow Rich book versus this faith that the Bible says itself as well too. And I truly believe that if you're a faith-based entrepreneur, we actually have an X factor when it comes to faith that those that are not faith-based do not have. You see, if you don't have faith, then the only faith that you have is in faith itself. If you don't believe that there's a God, if you don't believe that he's omnipotent and omniscient, then the only faith you can have is in your own words, in your own mindset. And do I believe that it's important to have positive mindset? Of course. Of course. And these are good questions that we're bringing up, right? It's important to think positive. I think it's better to think more positive than negative, right? However, there are some differences that go in here. All right, let's go through a couple more passages, okay? So we went through Mark 11:24, and it says, therefore I say to you, all things for which you pray and ask, believe that you receive them, they will be granted to you. It seems to say that you have to believe it before you see it. And it's true. The things that we achieve in our lives, in our businesses, in our finances, we do have to believe it first, right? You have to believe in a dream. Everything starts as a thought. Everything starts as an idea. However, here's a big, big key. It is the object. Here's the point. The object of your faith is important to understand here. Think and Grow Rich, the object of your faith is in your faith itself. It is, and Think and Grow Rich says this, faith is a state of mind which may be induced or created by affirmation or repeated instructions to the subconscious mind through the principle of autosuggestion. What Think and Grow Rich says faith is basically faith is something that you can convince yourself to get into. You basically brainwash yourself to believe anything that you want. So let's say you have a goal of making $1 million. You're like, well, I'm just so excited. I'm going to make $1 million. I'm already there, right? Believe it before I see it. Now, that's all you can say if there isn't faith in God. But here's the difference. Here's the difference. For the faith-based entrepreneur, we have an X factor, because we have a faith not just in our own words, in our own mindset. We have a faith in the person that is the object of our faith. For faith-based entrepreneurs, faith is not in your words. Faith is not in faith itself. Faith is in God, who is, it says in Ephesians 3:20, it says that to him who is able, this is the object of our faith, to him who is able to do far more beyond all we ask or think, according to the power that works within us. The object of our faith is in God himself, who is able to do infinitely more, abundantly more than anything that we can ever imagine. But here's a big key. How do we make sure that we can have faith in the proper place? It isn't just anything that we believe and brainwash ourselves to thinking that's going to do it. Here's a big key. 1 John 5. Let's read this, 14. So, it says, this is the confidence which we have before him, that if we ask anything according to his will, here's the big thing. Think and Grow Rich says that anything you can convince your mind to believe, you can achieve. Whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. Maybe you've heard that before, right? That's not true biblically. That's just literally not true. The truth is this. If you believe that if you're the person that believes that the Bible is in the inerrant word of God, and you believe that this is everything, this is the truth, there's many truths. You see, Think and Grow Rich has a lot of cool truths in it. It's true. But you have to make sure that it's submitted to the ultimate truth itself. This book dominates this book, right? So of course it's true that we have to believe something before we see it, but it's not everything that we believe that we'll see it. Here's the big premise here. that anything that we ask that's according to his will, there's the key. It's according to his will. What does God want? What's his plan for my business? What's his plan for this goal? But it's a powerful promise because we know that if we ask anything according to his will, he does hear us. And we know that if he hears us in whatever we ask, we know that we have the request which we have asked from here. Here's the huge part. Why is this so important for the faith-based entrepreneur? Because our faith is not just in our thoughts. Our faith is not just in faith itself, which if you've been through life already, you probably already understand that your faith is really, really weak. Have you ever had a goal and you were wavering in your belief levels as to whether or not you were going to be able to do it or not? Put a 2 in the chat if that's ever happened with you. It's hard to have faith all the time, isn't it? It's hard to be perfect in that, right? It's hard. Like, we're all weak. We all mess up. Like, how do you convince yourself and brainwash yourself to do that, right? And we've all had those situations like what I explained in Thailand, where I was convinced that it would happen and it didn't happen. What happens in those types of places? How do you measure what faith is? And the big difference of Thinking and Growing Rich biblically is that faith is in who you're having faith in. That we have faith in a God that is able to do immeasurably more than anything that we can ever imagine. And here's something that's important though. So James, what are you saying here? Why is this important? Should we even think about Think and Grow Rich? Should we even think about how our mind works? Should we even be having faith? Like now I'm a little bit confused. What do I do with this understanding? Now, here's the faith-based entrepreneur's X factor. The X factor is this is a good thing that we don't just have faith in itself. We have faith in a God that is able to do so much more than imagine. So here's what we actually should do in relation to our goals. Here's what we should do in our businesses. Here's what we should do in our dreams. We should pray bigger and believe bigger prayers than those that don't know the Lord. Why? Because our faith is not in just what we can believe. Our faith is in the God that is able to do anything. One of the pastors that I follow, Pastor Rick Warren, says, let the size of your God determine the size of your dreams. Matthew 9:29 says, according to your faith, let it be done unto you. It's important that we have bigger prayers and bigger beliefs and believe big, pray big. And why is that important? Well, it says in Hebrews 11:16, if you want to please God, how do you please him? It says, without faith in Hebrews 11:6, without faith, it is impossible to please him. For the one who comes to God must believe he exists and that he proves to be one who rewards those who seek him. You see, as a faith-based entrepreneur, having faith in who God is brings so much more glory to who he is. And I just think to myself, there's so many stories all throughout scripture that talk about this. You think about David and Goliath, and if you know that story, David is this little shepherd boy, and he's kind of the little trump of the entire brothers that he has. And there's this big old Goliath guy, and perhaps you know the story. He's like over 7 foot tall. He's this big giant. He's like this huge warrior, right? And here's little Goliath coming up. And you know what happened is he was challenging Goliath. And what David said wasn't, I have faith that I can do this, right? He said, I have faith that the Lord of armies, the God of all creation, I have faith that he is able, if he wills it, to be able to win this battle. His faith was not in his faith was in God. And guess what happened? David was able to slay Goliath. How about for you and your major goals, for you and your businesses, for you and your finances, for you and the big things? So pray big and bold prayers. But here's a word of caution here as well too. As we start to pray these big, bold prayers, and as we have to start to have true faith, and who God is, not in faith itself. We have to also understand that there's a premise that we have to pray in God's will for things. If God wills it, it will be done. If he doesn't will it, then it won't be done. This dream that I had about this Thailand expansion was not in his will. And he has a perfect idea with that, right? You've probably seen in your life, there's things that you thought were supposed to happen. They didn't happen. And in hindsight, it's 2020. You're like, oh, that's why it didn't happen, right? So it's okay. We have to understand there's times that we might think that it's in his will and it's not. But we have to, in this life of faith, be able to move out on that limb and be able to partner with God in these types of prayers and partner with God in faith in who we believe that he is. But how do you actually do it? And here's the last statement as we move forward in our goals, as we move forward in our businesses, in our lives. James 1:5 through 8. This is what true faith looks like. So let's say we have our goal that we think is a God-sized goal, that we think is something that he wants for us. Maybe you have a goal in your business, you have a goal in your finances, a goal for your family. And you think, God, I've submitted it to you. And you know what? Like, I think you want this for me because you want me to do this so that I can elevate you. You want me to do this so that I can help out my family. You want me to do this so you can use this as a testimony, right? You feel that this is a God-aligned goal, okay? And what do we do throughout this process? How do you have faith? Well, this is one of those verses that I jot down. This is one of those verses that I keep and bank into your memory. Our goal to have faith is, but if any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God who gives to all generously and without reproach, and it will be given to him. So our job is every day, in faith, ask God for this wisdom. He must ask in faith without any doubting, for the one who doubts is like the surf of the sea, driven and tossed by the wind. We must ask in faith, not that this goal will be done necessarily. We must ask in faith that he who is God will always answer with his wisdom, with his perfect will. Without faith, it's impossible to please God, right? For that person ought not to expect that he will receive anything from the Lord, being a double-minded man, unstable in his ways. Today with your goals, today with your dreams, today with the things and the desires of your heart that you feel that came from God. If you're a faith-based entrepreneur or someone of faith, then we have to understand that the faith that is talked about in Think and Grow Rich is the best that somebody that is a non-believer can do. Because if you don't believe in God, the only belief you can have is in your own self-belief. But if you're a person of faith, and as you start to look towards your goals, it's that much more important that our faith, the object of our faith is not to our faith, but the object of our faith is that it is to God who is able to do anything. And that should make us pray bolder prayers. As you go out into your lives today, as you go out today into your goals and your dreams, we should be asking God, God, I believe in this goal. I believe this is from you. And if it is your will that you can do anything through me in this. So show me today. Here's the prayer that I would have for today. Show me today exactly what my steps are. Show me exactly who I need to talk to in my business. Show me exactly what it is that I need to be able to do. Show me just the next step. And let your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And let this be a testimony to you, not to me, because it's not my job. My only job is just to believe in who you are. You have to believe it before you see it, right? So I believe that you can do this before I see it. And let it be such a miracle today. Let this be such an incredible thing like a David and Goliath, that it's not me that's elevated, but it's you that's elevated. Because ultimately that's a part of God's will. That we elevate him, not just elevate ourselves. So I hope this encourages you. I wonder what you think about this. And if this did encourage you and it was helpful, then share this with somebody. Subscribe to the YouTube. I'd love to hear comments below. My goal is not to be right through the series, but I'm going through, can we think and grow rich biblically? A lot of cool truths with a lowercase t, but ultimately we have to submit it to a truth with a capital T. And I hope as we are able to go through the truth that Jesus said, if you know the truth, then the truth will set you free. All right. So with that said, super appreciate you for being on here today. Quick shout out as well too. We do have a book that I've just written, and there's a Kickstarter campaign that's going on there. I've been talking about that. Check out the Kickstarter. I've been talking a lot about how to have miraculous breakthroughs in your life, and I hope that can bless you. We got around 21 days left on the clock for that one as well. All right, everyone. Well, hey, keep on coming back. Tomorrow we'll be back on again. We're going to keep on going through Think and Grow Rich. Can you do it biblically? And I believe you can, but under certain premises. Okay, everybody. And that, God bless. Have an incredible day. Talk soon.